This episode of Innovate Fort Worth is powered by PNC Bank.
We're not just preparing for that future here in Fort Worth, we are actually creating it. We're creating it with Energy 2.0. That's a huge role. We're advances like Harness. They have this microbox and a grid. We have a new Alliance hydrogen facility being selected in Texas. We have Sinclair Digital, MP Materials mentioned before, and Fawn Roche Solar. So Fort Worth is at the forefront of all these alternative fuel sources.
Welcome to Innovate Fort Worth, the podcast where we highlight local innovation and the people bringing those innovations to market. I'm Cameron Cushman, and in this episode, we're featuring a former librarian who now leads innovation within the Economic Development Department of the City of Fort Worth. Meet Kelly Baggett, the Innovation Coordinator in the city's Department of Economic Development. Kelly has extensive experience in smart cities, maker spaces, innovation districts, and other aspects of economic development. She's also a published author and a former librarian. Kelly, welcome to Innovate Fort Worth.
Thanks, Cameron. Great to be here.
So, Kelly, I just read your bio, but tell me about your role at the City of Fort Worth in your own words. What does a day in your life look like as the Innovation Coordinator?
Oh, daily. Let's see. In economic development, my role is all about supporting initiatives for Fort Worth, and that's to become a hub for innovation and high impact enterprises. Everything we do is aligned with the city's economic development strategic plan. So for me, that means recruiting tech-driven companies in my target industries. So that includes life science and transportation innovation and many areas of innovation in general. So a day would look like support for our innovation districts in the city, or providing research and producing asset maps for projects like smart cities. It's really a gem of a day when I partner with local entrepreneur support organizations and connect people, raise awareness, and or solve problems. So that could be helping companies expand, keeping tabs on emerging tech trends, or bringing investment to Fort Worth. So I guess in all cases, the goals are always to increase jobs with high wages and grow the tax base. So just a bit like, juggling flaming swords.
The flaming lightsabers, as we can see in the background there. So,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so some people might say that government of any form, local, state, federal, and innovation are kind of at odds with each other. But how do you support innovation from the perspective of a local government?
Oh, well, we got to cut that red tape of, local government bureaucracy, but it depends on the day. Specifically, 3 areas come to mind for that. So we have the EIC committee for one. So I manage the speakers and calendar for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Committee, which I'm proud to have you, Cameron Cushman, to lead the committee with recommendations for council members. And it's a pleasure to leverage the work that you and the team at HSC Next and everyone seeing as, the city is seeing like just an explosion of startup activity from your work. And but mostly the EIC group is all about improving Fort Worth's business environment. So we focus on policies and partnerships to make entrepreneurships thrive. We're digging into things like better permitting processes, as you've seen with the Institute for Justice that you collaborated with, and supporting small business and entrepreneurial success, as well as strategic development. And it's all backed by solid data. So to make it even stronger, the committee is supported by your advisory group of business leaders. So we get that real world insight. And thanks for leading that one too, Cameron. With number 2, like the where economic development too helps is how we help companies scale. And so that could be by meeting with them and giving them the tools and get connections to see them grow. So that's providing honest feedback on a product, service, business plan, pointing them to the grant programs or investor resources. And so really, we're just there to help. We also plug them into the broader ecosystem, and that could be with hospital leaders and like Techstars, and sometimes just helping them to find their place in the network. But mostly, lastly, entrepreneurs are ready for the next stage of growth. That's where we step in to really help bridge their financial gaps with incentives. So we have this creative toolkit with 380s and tax abatements. Our team in economic development is really responsible for being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So we take calculated risk in unconventional markets and a very solid way. And so on any given day, I'm vetting companies to ensure they align with our goals. I would like to call out one standout example, and that's with MP Materials and Energy 2.0 for rare earth materials and magnets. We crafted a compelling offer that helped secure their involvement in the supply chain and reshoring. So ultimately, that aided the development of the electric vehicle Hummer. And so that's been a win-win situation for economic growth.
Very cool. And you mentioned, these innovation-led startups tend to have a high impact or a higher impact. How do you view innovation in this world of creating high impact innovation, jobs, wages, things like that when it comes to economic development in the city of Fort Worth?
Okay, well, so aside from the $2 billion year we had, the last year, I think what's been real impactful is that the city of Fort Worth is really laying the groundwork for entrepreneurships to drive that innovation. So that impact is just undeniable. It helps bring talent, the sweat equity, the capital that fuels our economy, so that they get the GDP and R&D. I mentioned before about innovation districts, so I'll dial into that. Our medical innovation district, or what we call the MID, and the mobility innovation zone, or better known as the MIZ, are at the heart. These places are where public-private partnerships cluster industries to ignite the collaboration and innovation. And so more specifically, back in 2023, the city formally established the MID in the near south side. So currently, this district brings together major hospitals, biotech firms, academic institutions to create a thriving hub for biotech and life science. And it's home to Tech Fort Worth, TCU School of Medicine, 6 major hospital headquarters, and to name Texas Health Harris, they just brought their new Justin Tower, Baylor Scott and White, Cook Children's, their new master plan, Medical City, and Moncrief under UT Southwestern. So right now we are holding these closed session MID meetings to allow these key stakeholders to focus on priorities and streamline that decision making for future initiatives. On a similar note, the MIZ also designated in March 2023, although this goes back to the airport being built out in 1989. It's in Alliance, Texas, in North Fort Worth, and it's really a focal point for mobility innovation. So this builds on decades of partnerships with City and Hillwood, and it's the world's first industrial airport. So already we have a massive inland port that has grown around it. The global logistics hub is astounding. It has 2 Class 1 rail lines and over 500 companies. And Mike Berry just announced north of $130 billion in economic impact. So with these innovation districts overall, the city's role in working with private industry and academia and clustering the innovation hub, that's really accelerating the development and the commercialization of many of these advanced technologies.
Yeah, and you touched on it there at the end. The idea behind those innovation districts is that you group these groups together that are working on similar problems, right? You group all the healthcare folks together in a cluster around the hospitals, and the medical school, the TCU Medical School. You take all these people who are working on similar things around transportation and logistics, and you put them all in one place. And they can share resources, they can share real estate, they can even share staff or employees or things like that. And the idea is that you're stronger together instead of by yourself operating in a silo, which I see as something critical to that, as a critical role that the city government can play, is encouraging growth and attraction and development in those specific regions around those specific industries. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, you got it right on the nail on the head. The more industry we create, the more talent we're pulling and attracting, and even more on the companies on the supply chain as well.
Well, Kelly, as you know, I'm a recovering policy wonk and maybe a little bit of a nerd, and so I want to jump into the weeds a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about the research and development tax credit that is really unique in the city of Fort Worth? And are there any case studies that you can point to where this R&D tax credit has been used?
Oh, okay. Yeah, the city supports research and development, or R&D, through a program that offers reimbursement of up to 50% of qualified R&D expenses for projects. So mostly in these geographic areas that we've named, the MID and the MIZ, the percentage goes a little bit higher, and as well as downtown. These grants, they're tied to municipal property taxes and can even be assigned on the open market for a little bit added financial flexibility. So These incentives are valuable for companies in target industries, and they may not have the massive capital investments or capex, but contribute significant value through their R&D efforts. So, but most of these projects, they meet the same federal definition, Section 41 of R&D, and those would be eligible. So, key for those companies are qualified costs that include salaries and their equipment. We call it business personal property, or BPP, and other research activities. Notable recipients in R&D are Linear Labs and GKN Aerospace and Sinclair Digital.
Two of which we've had on the podcast. So there you go.
Oh, yeah. Great fans of great innovation going on there. So as you mentioned, the case study, since you did have Farouk Islam, he was fantastic with Sinclair Digital. So, they were looking at the redevelopment of that historic Sinclair hotel in downtown Fort Worth. And, they transformed this Art Deco landmark. It is stunning. And they put, technology like LEDs and smart mirrors and this tech called PoE, or Power over Ethernet, that's super low voltage. So in this specific case, the city recognized, the innovation downtown, and they offered Sinclair Digital grants through the R&D tax credit program, and that reimburses up to 35% of eligible annual R&D costs if the company can bring 63 jobs that are over $100,000. So there's a cap at 10 million, but they're expected to generate north of 40 million in R&D expenditures.
Yeah, and Farouk had so much cool stuff to share that we had to make 2 episodes out of it. So go listen to those if you haven't already. It's really cool. And it's just cool because that's in downtown Fort Worth. This is not, in a suburb somewhere in a warehouse. I mean, this is actual technology that people from around the world that visit Fort Worth and stay in his hotel are experiencing. And it's really groundbreaking and really, really cool. And of course, Linear Labs also, the work that Brad Huntsville and his team are doing up there around a different kind of electric motor is really, really cool and going to have all kinds of future applications. So love that and love to know that the city is supporting that through a really unique tax structure and tax benefit through that R&D tax credit. So Kelly, let's say someone's interested in learning more. How are they typically contacted? How are you typically contacted by outside innovators or entrepreneurs or researchers who are interested in moving their work to Fort Worth or taking advantage of the R&D tax credit?
R&D tax credit, or the tech incentive, or 380, or tax abatement, we're contacted by a variety of channels. So about 35% are RFP, and that's through the state of Texas being our primary source. The rest coming directly from companies. We have cold calls, our colleagues at Economic Development Partnership, the EDP, or through department email, outreach by our team, even with partners like you at HSC. We've had many from Tech Footwear, North Central Texas Council of Governments, the North Texas Innovation Alliance, as well as BioNorth Texas, to name some. Recently, I'm really excited about this one too. So for instance, we have this company that came to me from SMU because we are a part of this partnership with the Texoma Semiconductor Tech Hub grant. Now, we'll soon announce this company, but they are disrupting industry, and it's a semiconductor fab. They're making exciting strides in electronics prototyping and cloud-based technology. Like, it is disrupting the business models. Truly the kind of innovation that we're proud of, and all of that just from a great network in North Texas.
Very cool. So I mentioned in the intro, not once but twice, that you come from a background as a librarian. How has that experience helped you in your current role? How did being a librarian help you help innovators?
Yes. See, my career started back in LA County. I was one of state of California's business libraries. I became a manager in the county in 2013, and we introduced the first 3D printer for public programming. It was called the Replicator, like Star Trek. And I was sent to Maker Faire, and that's where it just all clicked. I realized how transformative it is to ideate, and you could design using tools like Tinkercad and Fusion 360 that are online and available, and just to think this idea in your head, and now you can like prompt an AI and actually download it and hold it in your hand after 3D printing. So after that, I was hooked. We went forward from the library after that and developed a plan to create a maker mobile for workforce development. Moved back to Fort Worth, home with my family, and joined the Fort Worth Public Library. We secured funding from a nonprofit of oil and gas, and we opened the city's first public makerspace at the Panther Lab at Northwest. So, I love the space. It's the makerspace embodies like just that give before you get mentality. And, the sponsoring company even provided us with a maker in residence, and he was an engineer. So that drew more engineers and innovators and ham radio operators in that North Fort Worth area BNSF is. And we just had artists from all over. So it was incredible just to see the community of creators and problem solvers that came together in that space.
Very cool. And you mentioned this a little bit, but there's a library system here in Fort Worth, and the library system does a lot to help innovators and entrepreneurs. I send people to the library all the time. I don't think anybody ever takes me up on it, but I'm going to still tell them about it. Can you tell us a little bit about like what some of the libraries did that you didn't already mention while you were there, and what have you seen the Fort Worth Library System do since you departed?
The library system supports innovation by promoting diverse thinking and staying ahead of technological trends. So while I was there, we created the Panther Lab that I mentioned, and that was to democratize access to advanced tools like 3D printers, robotics, microcontrollers. One of its example impact was this 3D printing signage. There's this company called Black Eyed Distilling. They had kind of like a Black Eyed Pea vodka, and we actually 3D printed their entire sign, so we saved them cost. And we printed their logo. It was right at the interest, so a lot of creativity. We also supported workforce development by having programs that inspired local residents to study for their commercial drone license. So at the time, nearby BNSF or Berkshire Hathaway Company was, offering a drone UAS program. And so that also inspired me to get my Part 107 certification, and so they built it out with high school students. So incidentally, BNSF, was a company ahead of the game in the MIS, and they eventually become beyond visual line of sight, which is a huge thing in North Texas for drones. So another project I worked on, it's kind of smart cities related. It was called the Open Plus initiative, and it's a staffless library operation, and they use IoT devices. So this technology was successfully implemented and allowed patrons to access resources in non-traditional hours. So that went forward, and they got the funding for that. And, it's continued to just rapidly evolve in the innovation space.
And tell us what IoT stands for.
Internet of Things.
Yeah, very good. So, and what is Internet of Things? Just in your own words.
They're sort of like our smart sensors that interact with us, and it's like a if this then that kind of scenario. And actually, my DIY group had some of these like embedded systems on the side they're working on, and so if you approach the door would open, and you use your RFID on your badge, and you could still use a printer and the various systems that would move lights on into our IoT world. So that was real cutting edge about, a few years ago before, it's more prevalent now with AI.
Yeah, I just got a new oven, and I can turn my oven on with my phone. It is bizarre. I don't have to be at home to turn my oven on. Who knew that your oven needed Wi-Fi, but I guess it did. So Kelly, I want to switch to your publishing and writing career. You're a published author of a children's book. Can you tell us about the book, why you wrote it, and can you tell us a little bit about the impact that you think it's had?
Oh, yeah. First, let me start out with a quote that I really enjoy and think about when I write. One of my favorites is what Arthur C. Clarke said, and any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So I feel like we're in that time now. It's like STEM everywhere and wanting to know how we understand technology and AI. So I wanted to write a book to help parents and teachers guide their kids, or maybe the kids are guiding the parents. My first book is called Fables for the Connected Age. So I've always been inspired by the 2,500-year-old Aesop's fables. So as you know, it's incredibly popular because the simplicity of a fable just delves into universally relatable and timeless lesson. Like, you could have a tortoise and a hare showing the consistent effort. It always outperforms hubris or complacency and talent. And, it's just day after day. So because of this fable that's lasted thousands of years, I thought it would be a best way to talk about technology challenges and, to help our attention spans too. But in one of the fables, I feature a chameleon. And the Chameleon's always innovating using 3D printers for construction. So I have a 3D printer in the background. So you can see that, I love 3D printing. And I actually use a chocolate 3D printer to advertise in this meta sort of way for, how Chameleon is, 3D printing. I also have another sort of like rabbit character who engages in the pitfalls of tech mishaps. So a lot of face palms. And, the rabbit happens to be an entrepreneur, but needed better business skills on social. So, so the fable cautions children to be mindful about, what they post. So I hope it's been an impact. And, some people have told me it's, they haven't fallen prey because they've had to think about the next phishing scam and, kept their digital safety a priority.
Very cool. And it's a great book. Highly recommend. And tell us the title again.
Fables for the Connected Age. You
By
could get it
Kelly
on
Baggett.
Amazon or at Monkey and Dog locally.
Very good. Yeah, Monkey Dog's a great bookstore right up the street from us. I've bought so many books there, they now know me by name, so I'm not sure that's a good thing, but we love Monkey and Dog. All right, Kelly, I want you to, you mentioned Arthur C. Clarke here. I want you to look into the future for a minute, and I want you to tell me what you think is going to be the biggest driver of innovation of Fort Worth in the next 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years, or maybe like 1 to 2. No, it's an interesting question. We're not just preparing for that future here in Fort Worth. We are actually creating it. And I sincerely believe that. I think that, we're creating it with Energy 2.0. That's a huge role. We're advances like Harness. They have this microbox and a grid. We have a new Alliance hydrogen facility being selected in Texas. We have Sinclair Digital, MP Materials mentioned before, and Fon Roche Solar. So Fort Worth is at the forefront of all these alternative fuel sources. And I think that the number of energy related businesses they've grown by 34% in the past decade here. And so sustainability and energy is fascinating. And just a few weeks ago, I had a call about a company, they're 3D printing, batteries that are modular and, just a different way of customizing batteries. I mean, that just it's disruptive to me. So, when they get these batteries figured out, I'm also thinking a key driver for the next 5 to 10 years are going to be the eVTOLs. We have FAA 28 coming along, but our air taxis are ready to take off, and they're electric vertical takeoff and landing.
Thank you. I was about to interrupt you and make you define that one for us. Yes, thank you.
I saw your face. eVTOLs, and they're going to require a lot of infrastructure. And the Spinks Master Plan of Fort Worth is working on these things, and aviation, and looking at vertiports and how that can support the sort of eVTOLs. So I think the smart city technologies are going to future-proof Fort Worth and manage our growth effectively. We're now the 12th, headed to probably the 10th largest city in the U.S., fastest growing. And, the broader North Texas region is now seeing 10% population growth in just 5 years. So with all this rapid expansion, smart city solutions are going to be staying ahead. It's going to be about staying ahead, but it's also going to be about being relevant.
All right, Kelly, well, let's jump in the last question. Kelly Baggett, I want to know who your favorite innovator is in Fort Worth.
Okay, that one's hard, Cameron. I mean, I love this question, but that one is super hard to choose. But the startup that I feel deserves more visibility is Fort Worth Diagnostics. So that's led by Richie Petronas and Jerry Buna Yaratana Cornkit. So while many of them know them as Exact Diagnostics, they were acquired by a California company, Biorad, and so that impact has gone way beyond. They're so strong at reinvesting in our city. They've attracted their own companies, like Bexa, who is Beringer Ingram. They built wet labs, and they've been such a strong route to the medical innovation district. So I think their work is about advancing science and strengthening our local ecosystem. So shout out to them.
Yeah, we love Richie and Jerry, and their company started here at HSC, and are really excited about where they're going to take that next company. And they own that super cool Katy Depot building, where they're building it as well on the near south side, which is an old rail depot that they turned into a biotech facility, which is just what a cool creative reuse of that. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today on Innovate Fort Worth. If you want to learn more about Kelly and the City of Fort Worth's Economic Development Department, you can visit their website at fortworthtexas.gov/econdev. That's fortworthtexas.gov/ If you like learning about innovation in Fort Worth, please subscribe to Innovate Fort Worth and please leave us a review. And if you want to join the conversation, follow us on social media at HSC Next. Empower your team with cultivating an innovative mindset and healthcare program at HSC. Designed for healthcare and life sciences professionals, this program equips students and professionals with 21st century skills, essential for success in today's rapidly evolving healthcare landscape. And it will equip you with the critical competencies to drive creative solutions, enhance patient care, and lead change. Stay competitive. Invest in innovation and enroll today. You can learn more at hscnext.com. Today's episode was produced by Kendall Rogers, and our digital editor is Jamie Barnhart. Our technical producer is Rob Upchurch from Rob Makes Pods Productions. Innovate Fort Worth is brought to you by HSC Next, a department of the University of North Texas Health Science Center at Fort Worth, where we are driven to improve the human condition through a passion for innovation, teamwork, and 3D printing. Thank you to PNC Bank for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship in Fort Worth.